Welcome back to the exciting book of 2Samuel. Hallelujah. All right. Today we're going to be taking a look at chapter 10. All right. Let's jump right in. 2 Samuel 10:1 says, "And it came to pass after this that the king of the children of Ammon died, and Hanun, his son, reigned in his stead. And then said David, I will show kindness unto Hanun, the son of Nachash, as his father showed kindness unto me. And David sent to comfort him by the hand of his servants for his father. And David's servants came into the land of the children of Ammon. And the princes of the children of Ammon said unto Hanun, their lord, thinkest thou that David doeth honor thy father, that he have sent comforters unto thee? Have not David rather sent his servants unto thee to search the city and spy it out, and to overthrow it?" It's a horrible thing when when you're actually trying to do something good and it get misperceived. That's a horrible thing. And here it is, King David was trying to do something good, yet it was getting misperceived. It was taken the wrong way and actually turned all around, and Amnon, I'm sorry, not Amnon, but Hanun, the king of Ammon, listened unto the princes, and took it the wrong way, Now here it is, let's take a look at some of these names. Hanun means favored. Nachash means serpent. Amnon means inbred. So, we have a spiritual picture of one that was an inbred, a favored serpent of the inbred, or king of the inbred, But one of the things that I want us to get, that I want you to get from this is, firstly, let us understand that these servants of David that he sent, they were official diplomats of the kingdom of Israel. See, and it's important that we understand, that the servants of David, i.e. the servants of the beloved, were diplomats of the kingdom of Israel. Because, the beloved, Yahushua the beloved, he has diplomats on the earth right now, amen?
Oh, yeah.
That he sends us out, amen? As diplomats of the kingdom of Hashemayim, or kingdom of heaven, amen? So you have to understand the relationship of a diplomat. When a diplomat comes into a country, they are the representation of the king or country in which they come from. All right? So what happens to them, is, and what you do to them is reflects on what you want to do to their leader. Verse 4 goes on to say, because he believed, verse 4 goes on to say, wherefore Hanun took David's servants and shaved off the one half of their beards and cut off their garments in the middle, even to their buttocks, and sent them away. And understanding that they are diplomats, from the kingdom of Israel, this was a great offense. Because, you're saying, this is what I think of you, and this is what I'll do to you. And so what he did was, he shaved off half of their beards and cut off their garments in the middle, even to their buttocks. Now, what was he trying to say in doing that? And to fully understand what was being said, we have to look to Scripture and consider the customs and manners of their day. So from Yeshayahu 15:2-3, we learn what it meant to have the beard cut off. And it says, he is gone up to Baith and to Dibon, the high places, to weep. Moab shall howl over Nebo and over Medeba. On all their heads shall be baldness, and every beard cut off. In their streets they shall gird themselves with sackcloth, and on the tops of their houses and in their streets everyone shall howl, weeping abundantly. So we see that cutting the beard off is synonymous or coincides with mourning, with weeping, you know. And what about cutting their garments in the middle, even to their buttocks? That had to be quite embarrassing, huh? Well, we'll see what that signifies as well. And also it's found in Yeshayahu, chapter 20, verses 3 and 4. It says, and Yahuwah said, like as my servant Yeshayahu or Isaiah have walked naked and barefoot 3 years for a sign and a wonder. See, Yah had him walk naked and barefoot 3 years for a sign and a wonder upon Mitzrayim and upon Ethiopia. So shall the king of Assyria lead away the Egyptian prisoners and the Ethiopian captives, young and old, naked and barefoot, even with their buttocks uncovered, to the shame of Mitzrayim. So hereby we learn that having the buttocks shown, you know, speaks to being captive, being held captive. So from the above passages, we can deduce the message that King Hanun was conveying in cutting half the head, half the head and beard of the diplomats of Israel. You know, because we also understand that he was upset because he had been made to believe that King David wasn't sending his servants to comfort him, but to search out the city and to spy it out and to overthrow it. So he was sending a staunch warning. You know, King Hanun was warning that if King David came over there messing with him, half his army were going to be in mourning and the other half would be taken captive. You know, and so that's the message that he was sending, and cutting off half their beards and cutting off their garments in the middle, even to their buttocks. All right, let me have my first reader read 2 Samuel 10, 5 through 7, please.
When they told Dawid, he sent to meet them because the men were greatly ashamed. And the king said, tarry at Jericho until your beards be grown, then return. And when the children of Ammon saw that they stank before Dawid, the children of Ammon sent and hired the Syrians of Beth-rehob, the Syrians of Zobah, 20,000 footmen, and of King Maacah, 1,000 men, and of Ishtob, 20,000 men. And when Dawid heard of it, he sent Joab and all the hosts of the mighty men.
Hallelujah. All right. Now, we know from other ancient writings, you know, specifically the Mari tablets, if you're familiar with them, that within the ancient Semitic culture, beards were a sign of virility. So for it to be shaved and the man not to be in mourning was probably considered gay or unmanly at the very least. You know, and so here it is, the diplomats couldn't show their face, you know, until their beards be regrown, and then they were able to return, you know, because of course they're representing the kingdom. You know, now we have some names in here that we're going to define, and in verse 6 we have Bethra, house of the street, Zobah, station, Maacah, depression or pressure, and Ishtob, a man of good or a good man. You know, and so we see a house of the street, station, pressuring a good man or a good man pressuring or being depressed. You know, so verses 8 through 12, my next reader, please.
And the children of Ammon came out and put the battle in array at the entering of the gate, and the Syrians of Zobah and of Rehob and Ishtob and Mecca were by themselves in the field. When Joab saw that the front of the battle was against him before and behind, he chose of all the choice men of Israel and put them in array against the Syrians. And the rest of the people he delivered into the hand of Abishai, his brother, that he might put them in array against the children of Ammon. And he said, if the Syrians be too strong for me, then thou shalt help me. But if the children of Ammon be too strong for thee, then I will come and help thee. Be of good courage, and let us play the men of our people, and for the cities of Elohim and Yahuwah do that which seemeth him good.
All right, hallelujah. So we see the children of Ammon, you know, they're going into battle. They're coming up against the kingdom of Israel. And so they go out on the battlefield, and Joab, which is David's general, he sends him out, you know, and him and Abishai, his brother, you know, they go out and handle their business. You know, in verse 12, we have a Hebrew idiom, you know, a figure of speech, you know, and it's a lot of times when people, you know, look at scripture and study scripture, you know, they forget that, you know, they had figures of speech, they had idioms, they had slang, you know, just as any culture, any community. You know, and here it is, we see one of those slang terms, let us play the men for our people. We seen earlier in this chapter, not in this chapter, but earlier in 2 Samuel, it spoke of the house of Judah and the house of Israel playing. It said, come on, let the men play. You know, this means let's do battle. You know, and this is what he was speaking of here. Be of good courage and let us play the men for our people. Let us go into battle with these guys. You know, so, you know, they had their slang terms as well. You know, let me have my next reader read verses 13 through 19 of 2 Samuel 10, please.
And Joab drew nigh, and the people that were with him, unto the battle against the Syrians, and they fled before him. And when the children of Ammon saw the Syrians were fled, then fled they also before Abishai, and entered into the city. So Joab returned from the children of Ammon, and came to Jerusalem. And when the Syrians saw that they were smitten before Israel, they gathered themselves together. And Hadarezer sent and brought out the Syrians that were beyond the river, and they came to Elam and Shabbat. The captain of the host of Hadarezer went before them. And when it was told David, he gathered all Israel together and passed over Jordan and came to Elam. And the Syrians set themselves in array against David and fought with him. And the Syrians fled before Israel, and David slew the men of 700 chariots of the Syrians, and 40,000 horsemen, and smote Shabak, the captain of their host, who died there. When all the kings that were servants of Hadarezer saw that they were smitten before Israel, they made peace with Israel and served them. So the Syrians feared to help the children of Ammon anymore.
Hallelujah. So here it is, Amnon, you know, they hired the Syrians to come and help them, you know, which was Israel's enemy, and David, he had his run-ins with them before. We read of Hadarezer previously, and how King David and the army of Israel had defeated him previously in some battles. So here it is, they're getting called in the battle with him again, you know, to help out the Ammonites. You know, now we had a couple names we hadn't seen in this chapter. Helam, which means fortress or stronghold, and Shabbat, which means expansion. You know, now even though the Syrians was hired to help, the Syrians fled before Israel. Amen. You know, Syrians speak to those in the high places. You know, and that's the same thing that happened, you know, and those in high places, you know, come to do battle with Israel now today, you know, spiritual Israel, that is, you know, they've fled before us, you know, and it says, when all the kings that were servants to Hadarezer, you know, so it's important to understand that he was, you know, he was a big shot. You know, he wasn't just a king, he was a king of kings. Can you see that? You know, he had other kings that was in servitude to him. And it says, and when they saw that they were smitten before Israel, they made peace with Israel and served them. You know, so hallelujah. That's, you know, that's what we want even to be done with our enemies spiritually. You know, and we're going to go on into chapter 11. So, 2 Samuel, chapter 11. Now, this chapter is a very interesting one. This entails the story of Bathsheba. You know, and we see David, you know, as, you know, some of the not so pleasant side of King David, you know, and where, you know, he fell short at. But there's a lot to learn here, so let's jump in. 2 Samuel 11, 1 and 2, it says, "And it came to pass that after the year was expired, at the time when kings go forth to battle, that David sent Joab and his servants with him and all Israel, and they destroyed the children of Ammon and besieged Rabbah. But David tarried still at Jerusalem." So we see it continued on, and they did battle that next year. Most likely it says at the time when kings go forth to battle, which was during the springtime, you know, after the latter rains, that's when the weather would start clearing up and it would get nicer, you know, before the harvest though, you know, because when it was harvest time, they needed everybody in the fields trying to get that harvest, you know, so they would do battle before the harvest, okay? And so it says that David sent Joab and his servants with him and all Israel, and they destroyed the children of Ammon and besieged Rabbah, which David tarried still at Jerusalem, and Rabbah means great, you know, so took care of them, you know, that was their, likely their capital city. Verse 2 says, "And it came to pass in evening time that David arose from off his bed and walked upon the roof of the king's house. And from the roof he saw a woman washing herself. And the woman was very beautiful to look upon." And this word beautiful is actually told. It's not the usual word that's used for beautiful in the Hebrew. It's told, which actually speaks to good. You know, some may think it's strange that David was on the roof in the first place. But this sort of thing was commonplace, you know, back in those times. Hence we see in 1 Samuel 9:25, it says, "And when they were come down from the high place into the city, Samuel communed with Saul upon the top of the house." So you see, this wasn't an uncommon thing for folks to be on the roof. They oftentimes had living quarters even on the roof, and even sleeping quarters on the roof. You know, yeah, they utilized their roofs, but it was different than what we have here, you know, but no snow and ice on their roof. You know, so we have okay, so I guess verse 3, you know, verse 3 says, "And David sent and inquired after the woman, and one said, Is not this Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite?" And so here it is, you know, he's looking at Bathsheba. Bathsheba name means daughter of the oath. Eliam, speak to Elohim's people. Uriah means light of Yah. Hittite means terror or fear. Okay, and so it says it came at evening tide that David was looking at Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite. Now, some people, you know, some scholars, they believe actually that, you know, he already knew who Bathsheba was. You know, and reason being is because Eliam and Uriah was both, you know, mighty men in his army. They wasn't just anybody. You know, they were two of the mighty men that was in his army. You know, but you know, we're not told one way or another whether he knew her or didn't know her. You know, but it could be, you know, when it speaks of he inquired after the woman, you know, he could have seen her and knew her and still, you know, inquired after her. But anywho, he did so, and verse 4 tells us he sent messengers and took her, and she came in unto him, and he lay with her, for she was purified from her uncleanness, and she returned unto her house. So she was up there washing, and you know, she was purified from her uncleanness, and it speaks about her returning to her house, you know, because she was probably away from her house for her purification period, you know, and so she was adhering to Torah, you know, and this is found, what she was adhering to is found in Leviticus 15, 19 through 24. My next reader, please.
And 15, 19, right?
Yeah, through 24.
And if a woman have an issue, and her issue is her flesh, be blood, she shall be put apart 7 days, and whosoever touches her shall be unclean until the even. And everything that she lieth upon in her separation shall be unclean. Everything also that she sit upon shall be unclean. And whosoever touches her bed shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until the even. And whosoever touches anything that she sat upon shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until the even. And if it be on her bed or on anything whereon she sitteth, when he toucheth it, he shall be unclean until the even. And if any man lie with her at all, and her flowers be upon him, he shall be unclean 7 days, and all the bed whereon he lieth shall be unclean.
Hallelujah. Okay, so here it is. You know, it's speaking about she was purified from her uncleanness. You know, it's speaking to that she was on her cycle, and so Torah had specific rules for that sort of thing. You know, and so she was during the time of her purification. You know, and so this is what she was adhering to. Let me have my next reader read verses 11, 2 Samuel 11, 5 through 9.
And the woman conceived and sent and told David and said, I am with child. And David sent to Joab, saying, Send me Uriah the Hittite. And Joab sent Uriah to David. And when Uriah was come unto him, David demanded of him how Joab did, and how the people did, and how the war prospered. And David said to Uriah, Go down to thy house and wash thy feet. And Uriah departed out of the king's house, and there followed him a mess of meat from the king. But Uriah slept at the door of the king's house with all the servants of his lord, and went not down to his house.
Okay, hallelujah. Okay, let's take a look at this and see what we can learn from this. Let's back up a little bit. You know, first, let us just take a look at where David went wrong. Okay, you know, so here it is. You know, he's looking off his roof. You see this beautiful woman. She's washing. She's very beautiful. You know, and so he inquires after her, and he finds out that she's married. What should he have done? He should have left that alone right then, right? Because scripture tells him, scripture teaches that she's forbidden. You know, for him to get with her is adultery. Amen. You know, so you know this is wrong. So you know now, but this is how the enemy works. You know, the enemy will send a fiery dart into one's mind. You know, now this fiery dart, you know, when it lands, you have to learn to extinguish it as soon as it lands. You know, because if you don't, it has fire attached to it and it will spread. Okay? You know, so I liken this fiery dart to a thought. So now we look at this and we see that King David is looking from the roof and he's seeing how beautiful the woman is, and obviously he had a thought that entered into his mind. Now scripture teaches that we're to bring every thought, you know, into captivity or subjection to the word of Elohim. Amen. Now had he done that, see now we're getting into some more spiritual warfare. Amen. You know, had he done that, had he brought that thought into subjection to the word of Elohim, thou shalt not commit adultery,
Right.
then that would have been the end of it. See, but this fiery dart was not extinguished. See, and this is the problem, this is the trouble when you allow a fiery dart to continue. That's the problem when you allow when you don't extinguish a fiery dart right off. You know, it will catch a blaze. See, and that thought will become an imagination. You know, you can see where the thought came in, you know, and so he inquired and he found out who she was. He should have extinguished that, but he didn't. It became an imagination, and that imagination became a plot or a plan. You know, and so he plotted and he planned and he took her, and the worst happened. She became pregnant. You know, and now he had another thought. How can I get myself out of this mess? I done got myself into this mess. You know, and so now he has another thought. Another fiery dart is shot into his heart and mind. You know, and he failed to extinguish it. It becomes an imagination as well. He started imagining how he can get out of this mess without repenting. So let's learn from his lesson. You know, he started imagining, you know, how can he get out of this mess without repenting, without it coming to the forefront. And then he began to plot and plan again. And so this is what we see in verses 6 through 9. This plot and plan that he has. So it says, and David sent to Joab saying, send me Uriah the Hittite. You know, and he was trying to get him to go down to his house and wash his feet. Now we were talking about idioms and talking about figures of speech. This is another idiom, another figure of speech, another slang term. You know, he's basically saying, go to the house, get with your wife. You know, that way he could pass off the pregnancy on Uriah. This was the thought that grew into an imagination that became a plot or plan, and then scripture teaches that plot or plan will bring about iniquity. So we see it happen with the first fiery dart, you know, when he seen Bathsheba, you know, and began to imagine things concerning Bathsheba, and it became a plot or a plan, and that plan became iniquity, and now we see it happening all over again. You know, now to get out of that mess, there's another fiery dart that's been planted into his psyche. You know, it became an imagination. He began to plot and plan concerning it. You know, and so he sends for Uriah, her husband, and he says, go down to thy house and wash thy feet. But it says Uriah departed out of the king's house, and there followed him a mess of meat from the king. So he's sending dinner with him. But Uriah slept at the door of the king's house with all the servants of his Lord. It didn't work. So we go on to 10:11, and it says, and when they had told David, saying, Uriah went not down unto his house. David said unto Uriah, camest thou not from thy journey? Why then didn't I go down to thine house? You know, so his plan didn't work. You know, so now you're trying to figure out, man, why the plan didn't work? It was a good plan. You know, probably because it came from the enemy. You know what I'm saying? You know, that's probably, his plans usually don't work. All right? You know, now listen to Uriah's answer. It says, and Uriah said unto David, the ark and Israel and Yahudah abide in tents, and my lord Joab and the servants of my lord are encamped in the open fields. Shall I then go into mine house and eat and to drink and to lie with my wife? As thou livest, and as thy soul liveth, I will not do this thing. We're dealing with a righteous brother here. We're dealing with a righteous brother here. You know. Now, what does the ark have to do with anything? You know, sometimes they took the ark into battle with them. You know, and this was apparently one of those times they took the ark into battle with them. See, now there's a great lesson for my spiritual soldiers, for those in the army of Elohim. There's a great lesson in this. You know, because he knew the ark was there, he refused to eat and drink and to lie with his wife. He says, I will not do this thing. Now, Deuteronomy 23, 9 through 14 gives us likely his reasoning behind not doing that. It says, when the host goeth forth against thine enemies, then keep thee from every wicked thing. See, now there's a great lesson for those of us in the army of Elohim who enter into spiritual warfare. This is very important to understand. It's a very important concept to understand. It says, when the host goeth forth against thine enemies, then keep thee from every wicked thing. If you're fighting, if you're Israel and you're in the war and you're fighting, then you should keep yourself from every wicked thing. Yeah. Verse 10, and if there be among you any man that is not clean, by reason of uncleanness, that chanceth him by night, then shall he go abroad, out of the camp. He shall not come within the camp. Okay, so if a man be unclean and he's fighting with you, then, you know, you're to send him home. You know, so if you have somebody that's in this spiritual warfare with you and they're unclean, you don't need them. You send them home. You get them out of the battle. You understand? You get them out of the battle. And if it's you, if you're fighting alone and you're unclean, then you stop fighting. You don't go onto the battlefield unclean. You understand? You know, verse 11. Did I do 10? Yeah. Okay, verse 11. But it shall be, when evening cometh on, he shall wash himself with water. And when the sun is down, he shall come into the camp again. You know, so when you become clean, you can come back into the camp and you can get your scrap on. You can fight. You know, it says, verse 12, thou shalt have a place also without the camp, whither thou shalt go forth abroad. And thou shalt have a paddle upon thy weapon. And it shall be, when thou wilt ease thyself abroad, thou shalt dig therewith and shalt turn back and cover that which cometh from thee. You know, you don't want nothing to cause you to unclean. Why? To become unclean. Why? That's the important part. Why? And this is one of the most important verses concerning spiritual warfare in all of Scripture. You know, and this is Deuteronomy 23:14, and it says, for Yahuwah thy Elohim walketh in the midst of thy camp. See, now this coincides back, you know, with Uriah, you know, pointing out that the ark was there in the field with him. The ark represented the presence of the Most High. Okay, so here it is, you're on the battlefield and the presence of the Most High is with you. You can't do what you may do when the presence of Elohim is not with you. Amen? Yeah. You know, verse 14 tells us why. It says, for Yahuwah thy Elohim walketh in the midst of thy camp. You know, now keep in mind that we all are as Israel. We all wrestle with good and evil, and prayerfully we will prevail by holding on to Elohim, which is good. Amen? You know, and we all going to get into a spiritual warfare, you know, at some point or another. And either we're going to have to fight for ourselves or we're going to have someone fight for us. Amen? You know, and Yahuwah, thy Elohim, will walk in the midst of thy camp to deliver thee. What did he come to do? To deliver thee. And to give up thine enemies before thee. Therefore shall thy camp be holy, that he shall see no unclean thing in thee, and turn away from thee. See, you got to get this, see, because, you know, if you're fighting a spiritual warfare, if you're fighting a spiritual fight, and here it is, you're on the battlefield, and you call yourself, you know, going to battle, and Yahuwah, thy Elohim, come in the midst of your camp to deliver thee and to give thine enemies before thee. If he see any unclean thing in thee, he's going to turn away from it. If he see that you are not holy, he's going to turn away from you. So guess what happens? Well, guess what the result of that battle is going to be? You're going to lose. You're going to lose. See, you really have to understand that this is really, really, really a huge concept. You know, because you hear people always talking about, you know, hey, the devil's under my foot, and I'm a soldier in the army of Elohim, and I'm on the battlefield, and so on and so forth. But if you are out on that battlefield and you are unholy and you are unclean, then you will get no help from Elohim, because he's going to turn away from these. You know, and that's huge. You know, and kudos to Uriah, because he knew that if he went out on that battlefield unclean, he would be doing a disservice, not only to his comrades, but to Elohim as well. That he wouldn't be helping the battle, he would be harming. You know, righteous guy he was. Let me have my next reader read verses 12 through 15.
And David said to Uriah, tarry here today also, and tomorrow I will let thee depart. So Uriah abode in Jerusalem that day and the morrow. And when David had called him, he did eat and drink before him, and he made him drunk. And at even he went out to lie in his bed with the servants of his Lord, but went not down to his house. And it came to pass in the morning that David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it by the hand of Uriah. And he wrote in the letter, saying, set ye Uriah in the forefront of the hottest battle, and retire ye from him, that he may be smitten and die.
All right, now, here it is. He hadn't given up on his plan. You know, that fiery dart, that thought, it became an imagination as to how he could get out that mess. That imagination became a plot or a plan. If I can just get Uriah to lay with his wife, you know, then he wouldn't know whose child it was, and my sins will be covered. You know, but he didn't go home. He absolutely refused. You know, so, and he had good reason. You know, so David, you know, figured, well, I'll tug at his integrity a little bit more. You know, I'll get him drunk. And then surely, you know, he'll give in. You know, so this is what he did. He called him, you know, and he had him eat and drink before him, and he made him get drunk. And it said at even he went out to lie on his bed with the servants of his Lord, but went not down to his house. You know, this was a righteous man. This was a man of integrity. You know, even in drunkenness, he still stood strong. You know, now this reminds me of a passage in Habakkuk, chapter 2, verses 15 and 16. It says, woe unto him that giveth his neighbor drink, that putteth thy bottle to him to make us him drunken, also that thou mayest look on their nakedness. Thou art filled with shame for glory. Drink thou also, and let thy foreskin be uncovered. The cup of Yahuwah's right hand shall be turned unto thee, and shameful spewing shall be on thy glory. Now this would actually come to pass in David's life. You know, now speaking of slang terms and Hebrew idioms, we have yet another one here. Thou mayest look on their nakedness. What does it mean to look on one's nakedness? Leviticus 18:8. It says, the nakedness of thy father's wife shalt thou not uncover. It is thy father's nakedness. You know, to look upon a man's nakedness was to sleep with his wife. You know, to look upon a woman's nakedness was to sleep with her husband. You know, so, you know, this is what is being spoken of here. You know, getting somebody drunk so you can sleep with their spouse. You know, now in David's case, you know, he was trying to get him drunk so he could sleep with his own spouse because he had already slept with her. But same principle applied. The cup of Yahuwah's right hand shall be turned unto him, and shameful spewing shall be on his glory. And we're going to see that in the chapter to come. Chapters to come. You know, now it says Now, that plan didn't work, right? You know, so here it is. David, all of a sudden, get this other fiery dart that shoots into his head. You know, now, he couldn't resolve his issue, you know, peaceably as he wanted, but he was determined to cover up his sin. See, there's a lot of us that after we do wrong, we become determined to cover our sin rather than confessing our faults one to another, rather than repenting, you know, and converting from the error of our ways. You know, and this is what we see David doing. You know, again, he began to plot and plan. You know, this fiery dart turns into an imagination. This imagination turns into a plot or a plan. This plot or a plan, you know, will eventually bring him into iniquity. And so we see this pattern go over, happening yet again with him. And I want you to know and understand that this is the same way it happens with us. You know, the enemy shoots a fiery dart that is a thought. That thought becomes an imagination. That imagination becomes a plot or a plan, and that plot or a plan brings us into iniquity. You know, and so here it is now, you know, he's seeking to do away with the embarrassment, with the humiliation, with covering his sin, you know, even at the death of Uriah. A man that has done nothing to him. A man that was totally innocent. A righteous man. Even a mighty warrior who fought and put his life on the line for him. You know, this was real ugly of David, was it not? Said it came to pass in the morning, David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it by the hand of Uriah. He had him carry his own death sentence. How ugly is that? He had him carry his own death sentence to the one who was going to carry it out. That's cold. Let me have my next reader read verses 16 through 21.
And it came to pass when Joab observed the city, that he assigned Uriah unto a place where he knew that valiant men were. And the men of the city went out and fought with Joab. And there fell some of the people of the servants of David. And Uriah the Hittite died also. Then Joab sent and told David all these things concerning the war, and charged the messenger, saying, Thou hast made an end of telling the matters of the war unto the king. And it so be that the king's wrath arise, and he said unto thee, Wherefore approach ye so nigh unto the city when ye did fight? Knew ye not that they would shoot from the wall? Who smote Abimelech, the son of Jerubbaal? Did not a woman cast a piece of millstone upon him from the wall that he dieth in Thebes? What will ye now the wall? Then say thou, thy servant Uriah the Hittite is dead also. And
that's good. Okay, so here it is. You know, Joab, he assigns Uriah to a place where he knew the strongest of the enemy were. You know, and take note that verse 17 says, and there fell some of the people of the servants of David, and Uriah the Hittite died also. Because of this, some other people died as well. Can you see that? Uriah the Hittite didn't die alone in this maneuver, in this wicked plot or plan. Other people got hurt as well. Other people died as well. You know, and see, and that's oftentimes the consequence of wickedness. You know, it doesn't just hurt the proponent, you know, of the wickedness. Other people get hurt as well. You know, and so Joab sent unto David concerning the things, you know, and he spoke of, you know, how he brought it about, you know, by having them come too near to the battle. You know, and he spoke of Abimelech, you know, and how Abimelech got killed. You know, and normally the king would have probably been upset, you know, for him, doing that, knowing that, hey, this was a lesson that we learned from Abimelech. You don't get too close to the wall. You don't get too close to the door. You don't get close enough where somebody can, where you're in reach of those that are on top. If he say anything, then say, thy servant Uriah the Hittite is dead, so you know why he done it. Now, what it's speaking of is in Judges 9:52 and 53. It tells us Abimelech came unto the tower and fought against it and went hard unto the door of the tower to burn it with fire. So he went right up on it, and all the people were up top. And it says, and a certain woman cast a piece of millstone upon Abimelech's head, and all to break his skull. And she did just that. He didn't die immediately, so he asked his armor bearer or someone near him to, run the sword through so that it wouldn't be said that a woman killed him. But guess what? We still say a woman killed him. So didn't quite work. Let me have my next reader read verses 22 through 27.
So the messenger went and came and showed David all that Joab had sent him for. And the messenger said unto David, surely the men prevailed against us, and came out unto us into the field, and we were upon them even unto the entering of the gate. And the shooters shot from off the wall upon thy servants, and some of the king's servants be dead, and thy servant Uriah the Hittite is dead also. Then David sent unto the messenger, thus shalt thou say unto Joab, let not this thing displease thee, for the sword devoureth one as well as another. Make thy battles more strong against the city, and overthrow it, and encourage thou him. And when the wife of Uriah heard that Uriah her husband was dead, she mourned for her husband. And when the mourning was past, David sent and fetched her to his house, and she became his wife, and bare him a son. But the thing that David had done displeased Jehovah.
Hallelujah. So, David finally succeeded in covering his sin. So he thought. And that's the whole thing. That's the lesson to be learned for us. All this plotting and planning and iniquity to cover our sins from man. But there's nothing you can do to cover your sins from Yah. He sees all. He sees all. And even though you may think you've gotten away with something from the view of man, he sees all, and he's going to deal with the situation. So stay tuned. We'll get into that next week. That's all I have for you today. Prayer was a blessing.